What we're going to cover today is creating a geodatabase and working a little bit with domains. So to create a geodatabase, you go to the folder in which you want it to reside, you right click on that folder, go to the new option, and then select File Geodatabase. This will create a blank geodatabase with a default name. Change it to something appropriate. For us, we're going to call it Study Area. And then you're ready to add features or rasters or tables or whatever you'd like to the geodatabase. And you do it the same way that you was created. You right click, go to New, and then select Feature Class. For our purposes, we want to create a feature class that's going to be polygons. You need to give the feature class a name. So you type in the name and an alias. And then be sure that your type is set to the appropriate one. It should be polygon for us. Then there's a couple more dialogues which will hit. The first being identifying a geographic coordinate system for it. Rather than going through the selection process, let's import one. We'll import the one for the image from which we're going to digitize the land area. So we'll find our image, the one that's currently on display in the background, and select it, import the geographic information from that, take the defaults for the next couple dialogues, and then it comes to a dialog where we see fields for a new feature class, the default ones being object ID and shape. Here we should create two new fields, one of which will hold a numerical value that will relate to the land use information. We'll call it land use numeric, and we'll make it a short integer. The next field we'll call land use description and make that a text. I'm adding some default values on each of these. As you saw, I did land use number, I had a default to 0. For the land use description, which is text as I mentioned, we're going to have it default to agriculture, since class 0 in agriculture will refer to the same thing. When we're all done, simply hit finish. Let's talk about domains. If we look at the data management section and the toolkit for domains that's within there, we'll find that there is one there for creating domains. We select the Create Domain tool and pop it up. We'll get our dialog. Domains reside inside the geodatabase. So we need to select the geodatabase as our workspace. We then will need to give our domain a name. We'll call the first domain land use code. And we'll give a little brief description, calling it numerical codes for land use types. And it is indeed it's going to be a short, and it's going to be a range. Since it's numerical, we'll identify a range of numbers that the code can be. When we're done with that, we say OK, and we've created a domain inside the geodatabase. We have one for the codes. We would also like to create another one for the descriptive information. Again, same geodatabase. Identify a name for our domain. In this case, we can call it land use description. This is going to be a text field. That's going to store a string for the description of the land use type. So of course the field type is going to be text, and it is automatically identified as coded. Say OK, and that adds that also to the Geodatabase as a domain. Now if we right click on our Geodatabase and go to properties, that's where we can see the domains that we have just added. If we select the first domain, the numerical one, we can set the range, a minimum of 0, and we'll make the maximum 6. So the numbers for that field to be valid numbers will fall between 0 and 6. We want to do a similar thing for the next domain, but since it's text, it will be coded. And what that means is we'll actually put in every value that's possible. So for the basic code, we'll start out with something like AG for agriculture. So we enter that in the first row, and then we type out agriculture as the description. We can do that for a number of other fields, including commercial, industrial, public, residential, vegetation, water, all those types of things, until we are complete. Once we have completed, just hit apply and then OK to finish the updating. If we open up the properties for the layer, we can look at the fields, and this is where we're going to assign the appropriate domain, picking the land use number. We can go down to the second section and identify which domain we want to use for that particular field. And we want to do the same thing for the descriptive, the text information. Go down, and in the domain section, in the second section, we identify that we want to use the description domains. We hit apply and OK, and the domains have been set to each of the fields now. So now how do we use these? So let's go up to editing to see how these domains help us. So let's create a new polygon. Start digitizing. I'll do a very rough job, just to create essentially a polygon that's commercial industrial in nature. We then open up the attribute information for that, and you notice we have an LU number. We can enter in a number value for this, which one is going to be a commercial, and then we can identify a land use description. Notice that there was a drop-down list of the descriptions available. Those were all the ones we had typed in. You can pick and choose. That way you don't have any problems with spelling and someone typing in something that isn't even in the list. However, if I type in 9 for the number, we know that's beyond the range of 0 to 6, but it doesn't tell us that right away. So let's go ahead and digitize a few more polygons and add attribute information in, so we can demonstrate a little the use of the range and how you can use that to verify your data. And this one we'll call vegetation when we get it completed. Since not sure about vegetation number, we'll build a drop down list. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and vegetation should be the number 4. But again, let's make it an obviously wrong number and make it 11. We'll do one more polygon, and then we'll take a look at what we have. So let's do one of water. So just a section of water along here. We'll digitize that in. Close it off. And again, update the attributes. This time if we do the description first, we see it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Water is 5. Put that number in, and they match up. Let's open up the attribute table, and you can see that, yes, we have the numbers, and we have the description, but obviously some of those numbers are out of range. The range was 0 to 6 in our domain. Now, we couldn't get wrong in picking description. It only gave us those, but we obviously could with the range. But there's a way of checking it. If we select all the polygons and use a function under the editor called validate features, it will tell us that there are 2 features that are invalid according to the domains. And we look down there, and yeah, we can see the 2. They're selected. We can look at the fields that we updated, and indeed, one is the 9 is wrong, as well as the 11. And then we can simply change those values. We can open up the attributes, click on the 9, and see that it should be, indeed, it should be 1. Click on the vegetation polygon and say, yes, vegetation, that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and make it 4. Update those. We can verify that by again selecting all the polygons. Run the feature validation option again, and all features are valid. So that's how we can use domains to set up a range of data values that are appropriate, as well as descriptive information and text listing from which to choose our attribute information.